stand as a people with one song, with one voice. We're a nation undivided and voice. We will take a stand and build our land in faith to defend what is ours. Here we are as a people with one heart.
Good morning to you out there. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning once again, and we thank God for His goodness and His mercies. We thank God for keeping us alive. This is the Business and Life series on Aloore Radio, and we're transmitting from the GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism, Secretariat, Agodi, Ibadan. You can join us on our social media handles. On Facebook, just search for Aloore Radio, YouTube at Aloore Radio, and our website is www.aloreradio.com. On TikTok also, we're there, Aloore Radio. And phone lines, just in case there's an opportunity to call in, will be 090-3985-3731. I'll take that again. 090-3985-3731. And my name is Oluwatoyin Amadi. I'll be your host this morning on the Business and Life series, and we have quite an interesting topic to look at today. Titled it Important Adjustments in Tough Economic Times. Important adjustments in tough economic times. As you know, that on the Business and Life series, we look at topics that will help to improve businesses, but we don't limit it to just businesses. That's why we call it the Business and Life series. So we also give out tips, personal development tips, things that will help you maximize your potential, maximize yourself, live well above the average, and things that can help in certain situations. So this morning we will be looking at this topic, important adjustments in tough economic times. And I want to say from the onset that we're going to be looking at both sides. We're going to be looking at what are the adjustments you can make as an individual in this tough economic times that we're in, and then what are the adjustments that a business can also make in this tough economic times that has come upon us as a people. And it's quite important, because if we know the right adjustments to make, it will make life easier. It will make it easier for us to even be able to live through this time, move through this time without too much overwhelming burdens on us. So, like I said earlier, this speaks to both individuals and businesses, and just beyond businesses, even organizations, even non-for-profit organizations, any form of organization right now, we need to start making adjustments. It's obvious, it's clear to all of us that we won't be able to go on as we were, a few months ago. But what are the key adjustments we need to make? That's why we're bringing this up. Of course, everybody knows we will have to make adjustments, but they're key adjustments, and the adjustments that won't really impact on the overall. But we need to know, so what are the key adjustments as individuals? What are the key adjustments as businesses that we need to start making right now. So I'm going to start with the individuals this morning. So if you are listening to me, you don't own a business, you don't run a business, you just, are on a career path, you're just doing your thing. What are the adjustments you can make as an individual that would, help you through this session, through this time, through this, tough economic times that we have, that has come upon us as a people, as a nation, right? So as individuals, there are many everyday habits that the average person can implement to try to protect themselves from the sting of tough economic changes. Everyday habits. And that introduction says there are many everyday habits that the average person can implement to try to protect themselves from the sting of tough economic changes. These economic changes, we don't have a control over them. We didn't ask for them, but they have come upon us. But one of the most important things, one of the key changes that we will need to make is to our habits. As individuals, that is, our habits. Okay? Now, when we make those habits, it will reduce the overwhelming effect that these economic changes would have brought on us. Okay, so it's not as if we're still not going to feel it. Oh, absolutely, we're all going to feel it, but it will not be as tough, as overwhelming as it might have been if we don't quickly make these adjustments, right, as individuals. And as the changes eat, these things that we're about to talk about will help you get through it in one piece. Okay? So, I'm going to start by saying that individuals can also develop habits that will protect them at these times, even though we're going through these economic realities. But there are some habits that you can now begin to implement that will at least serve as a shield, a bit of a shield for you, to protect you a bit in these times. So, lifestyle adjustments, that's the major habit change that we will need to make. And you see, when we talk about lifestyle adjustments, we are talking in a very broad term. We're talking we're speaking to a large spectrum of things, but I'm just going to key in on a few of those lifestyle adjustments that we need to make critically, that will now help us as we go on this journey. So the first thing on the lifestyle adjustments is that you need to assess your lifestyle in terms of habits. You need to be able to sit down, take an assessment of your lifestyle in terms of habits. This is one of the things that is a bit difficult, or has been a bit difficult in the past for a lot of people to do. Being able to sit down and take an assessment. And for everyone who will make any meaningful progress, you will need to be able to learn to make assessments. You need to be able to learn to assess things per time. Okay? So you need to assess your lifestyle in terms of habits. And basically what you want to look at is, where does your money go? Because your money is definitely going somewhere. Your money is definitely going somewhere. So you need to be able to know, where does your money go? And how much do you spend on what? If you can't track it, then it's more like you're just floating in thin here. You need to be able to know, where does your money actually go to. You see, very unconsciously, we know that yes, we do things, but unless we take time out to sit down and really do an assessment, you won't know how much is going where. For instance, someone pointed out this was even before all these economic things had hit, Someone was saying that, oh, he sat down and he was able to track that he was spending a few thousands, right? He ran into a few thousands on soft drinks, right? And oh, so what does that mean? He was the kind of person that in a day you might be taking 2 3 bottles, two three almost every day. And then yeah, so yours might not be that much. Yours might not be up to 2 3 bottles. Maybe it's just one, maybe it's just two, but if you don't track, you don't know how much you're spending on what. That's the bottom line of what we're trying to say this morning, that you need to be able to track where your money is going to. Now, for someone who, maybe there's some other things you indulge in, there's some other things you do, you spend money on, you need to be able to track it and know, okay, so this is how much exactly, or at least a very close range of how much I'm spending on what. Because if you don't do that, then you're just there. You can't really know what to now begin. You see, assessing was what will lead us to the second thing that I want to talk about this morning. If you don't assess, if you cannot say, for instance, this is how much I spend on transportation on every single day. So in a week, this is how much I spend on transportation. In a month, this is how much I spend on transportation, right? I've also been guilty of that. In many times we think, this is how much we're spending. We just have a vague idea until we really sit down. That's when it hits us that, oh, really? So I'm exceeding what the budget is supposed to be, and I didn't know. So unless we literally actually sit down to do that, you would not be able to track. So very importantly, track. Access to track is very important. So money is coming in, and definitely you are spending money out. Where is the bulk of that money going to? What percentage is going to what? What percentage of that income, of that money that you have, is going to what? You need to be able to track that. And then when you are now able to track, when you've been able to see what is going where, the next step for you to do is to adjust. By all means, right, you need to cut down, because we're talking about this economic realities that we have come into, and we're saying that, look, we can't, it will almost be impossible to keep going the same way we're going when the economy wasn't this tough, right? So when you assess, it is now easier for you to begin to adjust. In your process of adjusting, you will need to cut down. There are some things you will need to cut down on. And the way I put it here is that by all means try to cut down where you can, because the reality is that there's some things you won't be able to cut down on. It depends on your situation. It depends on how you are, where you are presently. There are some things you will not be able to cut down on. So that's why you need to take a holistic assessment. So you need to now be able to identify, so I can cut down on these things. These ones I will not be able to touch as at now. So when you can't touch those things that you can't touch, you leave them. Yes, doesn't mean that you ignore them. You begin to think of ways that you can, if there are ways that you can eventually work on them. But for the things you can touch immediately, begin to cut down on them. There's several examples. At times there are things we just indulge in. It's not as if they are bad. They're not bad things. But because of the kind of adjustment we need to make now, we need to begin to either, if you can, totally, abstain from those things, or you can decide to cut by half. It depends. And it's quite interesting that it is until we assess, until we track, that we can really know how much sometimes we spend on some of these things. It's quite interesting. I don't want to give details, but it's someone told me how, unknown to name, unconsciously he spends between 10, sometimes 15,000 on just buying suya. Sometimes in a week, sometimes in less than 2 weeks. And because it's just something he indulges in. It's just like, okay, yes, well, this is something he loves to do. But until he sat down and began to track it, so that's when he started saying, oh, so this much is going into this much is going into that. So that's why it's important for us to assess and track. So like I was saying, when you have done that, then you need to begin to adjust. There's some, like I said, you won't be able to cut down on, you won't be able to adjust them, at least for now, until you find alternatives. When you now find alternatives, it will be easy for you to adjust on those things. Now, there are some things that you should not cut down on. Yes, you heard me right. There's some things you should not cut down on. That's why we're looking at this closely. You see, whatever is contributing to money or more money coming into your hands, you can't afford to cut down on those things. That's why it's important for you to take a closer look at how your money is going, where it is going into. There's some things you can't afford to. There's some things you should not even touch. So that begins to let you see that, oh, so I should not touch these things. Instead, touch the things that you are, spending on that are a bit frivolous. They're things that won't determine so many things. They're just things that, bring pleasure, as it were. They're just things that bring, they're not things that are important. They're not things that will generate funds for you. They're not things that will generate more money for you. They are just there. Okay? All right. So when you begin to do that, you will then know that there are some you should not cut out on, like I said, especially if they are making you more money. And then your day-to-day frugal spending lifestyle will be of immense help when you begin to adjust. The purpose of adjusting is to become more frugal. The purpose of you adjusting is to become more frugal in your spending, so you can account for what is going where. And with that, it makes a whole lot of difference, because it will help you. If you, for instance, you're able to discover where you're spending some money, where some of your money is going into, you can immediately see that, oh, I can get an alternative for that. There's a way I can adjust and, probably just get an alternative that will still work, that will still serve that same purpose, but I won't need to spend that much on, right? So these are the things that we need to pay attention to. So the first thing is assess so that you can track. The second thing is adjust, right? So that you can become more frugal. In your adjustment, it will help you to become more frugal in your daily spending habits. Let's go on a short musical break. When we come back, we'll talk about a few other things that we can do that will help us in being able to go through this tough economic times well.
We're determined to rebuild and restore. When freedom rise and truth prevails, our land where there's hope for us all. Our land where there's hope for us all. We'll defend our land. We believe in this nation, and we know we'll get there. We'll
the Business and Life series. We're on Aloore Radio. We're transmitting from the GSM studio at the Ministry of Information, Culture and Tourism Secretariat, Agodi, here in Ibadan. And you can join us on our social media handles. On Facebook, just go to www.facebook.com/Aloore Radio. On YouTube, Aloore Radio, search for Aloore Radio. And our website is www.alooreradio.com. You can also find us on TikTok, just Aloore Radio on TikTok. And then our mobile number is 090-3985-3731. 090-3985-3731. And if you are just joining us, we're looking at important adjustments that we can make in this tough economic times. So we've spoken about two. We propose to look at from the side of the individual and of a business, but I don't know if time will permit us this morning. But we've seen one or two things that the individuals can begin to do, that you as an individual can begin to do. All right, so we're basing everything on lifestyle adjustment. Okay, so we're saying that the first thing is you need to assess what your lifestyle, so that you know where your money goes to, and then you'll be able to track. So the essence of that is to assess and track. Assess to track. Then secondly, we said you need to adjust when you have assessed and you have been able to track. You've been able to see it. So this is where this is going into. Then you can begin to adjust. And the purpose of you adjusting is so that you become frugal in your day-to-day spending. Now, let's move on to the third thing that you need to do as an individual in this tough economic times. The third thing is that you need to live within your means. Live within your means. That's supposed to be an obvious thing, but in reality is not obvious to everyone. There are people who still would probably, at one point or the other, still want to indulge in things that eventually will push you beyond living within your means. At this time, you need to be disciplined enough to know that whatever your income cannot afford you, is not for you at this time. Okay, so you need to live within your means, and living within your means is very important, very, very important for you at this time. Understand that what you can't afford now, understand what you can't afford now, okay? Be clear about it. So, I want to do this thing, but now I can't afford it. Now, when you say you can't afford it, I'm not saying you don't have the money. You actually have. If it were for you to just dip your hands into it and go and do it, it's not as if you don't have the money. But the fact that you have the money doesn't mean you can afford it. The fact that that money is resting in your bank account right now does not mean you still can afford that particular thing. So that's why you need to be able to sit down and know, okay, so I want to do this, but right now I can't afford it. Not because I don't have the money, not because the money is not available to me, but I cannot pick out of this money or take this money and go and do that at this time. It's not wise. It's not economically wise for me to do that. So you need to be able to get to that place where you literally know that, look, so this is, right now I'm not going beyond this, right? So you live within your means. If you make it a habit to live within your means each and every day, all right, you are less likely to go into debt. For instance, if you know that, okay, so this is my income, this is everything that comes in, so I want to, these are the things I need to do, these are the adjustments I need to make, then some people unconsciously, or whether I don't know what how to put it, will go out and say, okay, let me borrow to do this. These are not the times to indulge in borrowing as much as you can, except there's a clear way of repayment that will not put you under any pressure. If there is no clear repayment plan that won't put you under pressure, then please don't bother. That thing will, let it be there. It will not kill you. Okay? All right. So make it a habit to live within your means. You know, we're talking about lifestyle adjustments, and we're saying most important things are habits, our habits. All right. So make it a habit to live within your means. Okay. That way you are less likely to go into debt. Right. Adjust your spending in other areas to compensate for, like I said, things that you must still continue to do. Right? Okay, so you're working, you need to constantly still spend money on transportation to work. You don't have a choice, especially if you don't have the option of working remotely. You don't have a choice, so you still need to, you can't touch that. You can't touch other means, other things that are still bringing in income for you, or that potentially will even still bring in income for you. You can't touch those ones. So you need to now look at what to cut down in order to be able to, still continue. Now, let's take this thing of living within our means to a higher level. For instance, now, if you have, let's assume that a spouse, you and your spouse, right, both have incomes. You can decide that, okay, so we will cut our spending, we will cut our budget to almost within one person's income, right? Oh yes, you may say, it's impossible. I will get there. There's some things we will need to look at if we're going to make proper adjustments, and I mean proper adjustments. It's not everything that we have to do. It's not everything we've been doing that we need to continue. We have to continue doing. No. There's sometimes that, and that's what we're going to be talking about next. There's sometimes that some things that we're spending money on are not actually, they're not actually that important. That's why assessing is very important, very crucial, so that you know, okay, so these are very important. Nothing must touch them, right? But these ones, it's not as if they're that important. We can do without them, right? So the third thing, like I said, is live within your means. Live within your means. What you cannot afford now, you can't afford now. And please don't be apologetic about it. If you cannot afford it, you can't afford it. You hold nobody any explanation. You can't afford it now, stay away from it. The time will come when you'll be able to afford it with ease. So, please. So that leads us to the fourth thing, like I was saying. The fourth thing you need to do is to identify and deal with leakages. Identify and deal with leakages. Honestly, there are leakages everywhere. All you need to do is to be able to spot them. I once heard this many years ago, if I'm not, I think it should be about maybe 5-6 years or more now. Someone was just talking and started talking about leakages, and it hit me. There are a lot of leakages that we don't deal with. In fact, we don't even identify them. We don't even know that there are leakages until we take a very close look at them. And there are leakages everywhere, but you won't identify them if you don't take a look closely enough. All right, and this is very important. This is very, very important. Sometimes leakages may not take the form of money. I'll explain that. Sometimes, if you were, for instance, if you took money and maybe you were indulging in some things that you can do without, you can easily identify that and say, oh, that's I'm spending money on this. Like the person I said who was spending between 10, 12, 15,000 on suya every week, or at least just a bit over. I mean, if you're doing that, you can identify that I can cut down on these things now. I can cut down on this indulgence now, So you can easily identify that as a leakage. But there are some times that the leakage is not even directly taking the form of money itself, but it is taking the form of what you have bought with the money. So let me give you an example. In some homes, the level of food wastage is uncomprehendable. That's a leakage. So you have bought a bag of rice, for instance, or a half bag of rice, for instance, but the amount of that bag of rice or half bag of rice that you bought that gets wasted at the end of the day, that is a leakage. That is something you need to look at closely. That's something you need to work on. So if you continue doing that, you will say to yourself, oh, I'm spending money on the important things, which is fine, which is food, which you need, which your family needs. But at the end of the day, that food is still getting wasted. That's just an example. There's so many other things. In some cases, for those of us who drive, some cases your car there could actually be a leakage from there. There are things that all you need to do is just get some money and fix it once and for all. And then you will not need to spend the amount of money you're spending to maintain that car. So you see, sometimes that leakage is not just that the money, it's not that you're directly, no, it's just that the things you have bought with the money, you are now not maintaining them properly, or you're not using them efficiently enough. That's a leakage. Because at the end of the day, you are losing money from that side. So you need to be able to look at leakages. And trust me, if you take an assessment in your house, if you take an assessment in, you will find leakages. You will find things that you're spending money on that should not, that you can get better results from, that you're getting right now. That's a leakage. So we need to also block that. And the last, when it comes to individuals, what we can adjust, what we can do in this tough economic times. The last one I'm going to be talking about is increase your sources of income. Yes, I know that sounds difficult. That sounds like a tall order. But that's one of the things we need to start looking at now, right? And we're saying that multiple sources of income, apart from what you do right now, what are some other things you can do well? Apart from what you're doing right now, that almost will not be the only thing you can do well. So what are some other things that you can say, okay, I can do this well, I can also do this well? Is there a way you can begin to do those things along the side? There's a very popular saying, they say side hustle. I don't necessarily know if you want to call it a side hustle, but something you can do by the side that will also bring in some money for you. It might just be something you need to dedicate 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day to, aside from what you're doing, what is your main source of income, right? And for some, you don't even need to dedicate that much time to. You might be able to do it without you, putting your time into it. So, but the bottom line is that you need to increase your sources of income. Have additional income. It's very important at this time. Have additional income. If it's something you can sell by the side, if it's something you can try to do by the side, it's very, very important that right now, even if you have a great full-time job, it's not a bad idea to have a source or sources of extra income on the side, whether it's something you've known very well that you can help people with. Sometimes it's that simple. You've known something, maybe you've done something for a long time, you've done something for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you know it very well, and then you see some other people just trying to come into it and all that, and they need help, you can offer to help them and just make something, in return from there, right? So you can do that. You can start selling, you can start sourcing, there are a number of things you can do around that, but just do your best to increase your sources of income. So that's it for individuals this morning. I don't know, but so to cap that up, let me say this: whatever it is that you do, please ensure that you're doing something that is legal, something that is right within the ambit of the law. Please do not try to get yourself involved with illegal activities or anything that is beyond or outside the law. All right. So businesses, if I can do this in a minute, because I want to close in the next maybe 1 minute or two. For businesses, I think the most important thing is for you to understand that your customers or your potential customers now have less disposable income, and that means a lot. If your customers have less disposable income, you may begin to see a decline in patronage, and that will ultimately affect profit. So what are the things you can do in order to avoid this? What are the adjustments rather in order to avoid less patronage and also lower profit or reduction in profit? There are quite a number of things, but let me just touch on one or two that are very important. Okay, let's talk about the customer first. Focus on value. Understand that your customers begin to behave. The consumer behavior will change at this time. They'll be a lot more sensitive. They'll be a lot more budget conscious. There'll be a lot more, there'll be a lot more things they would need to begin to adjust to. So what you should do is focus on value. Give them all the value you can give them now. Make them feel good spending their money with you, whatever amount they're spending with you, all right, or spending on your business. And also be very flexible with your pricing. Yes, don't sell below cost price, but don't hike price. This is not the time to do that. It can hurt you. And then another thing you should do is you need to take a good look at your finances, and do your best to reduce expenses and outgoings at this time. Also, for every business has one leakage or the other that you can deal with, that you can identify and deal with. So let me stop here this morning. I believe that as individuals and as business owners, we've been able to learn one or two things. Please, let's just try to apply these things, and God will help us and see us through, and we will also be the ones to enjoy when the economy begins to improve and get better. Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Aloore, and join us next week Tuesday as we bring out another wonderful topic on the Business and Life series. Till then, have a very wonderful week. Bye.
Different tongues, we're united in our strength and resolve to uphold